Brentford 4, Manchester United 0. The seventh Premier League away game in a row that Manchester United have lost. And Stevie Nicol, the third time in 5 away games in the Premier League, Man United have been beaten by 4-0. Should we really be surprised at this scoreline?
I think we should be surprised at the scoreline. I don't think we should be surprised they lost. I think the scoreline is the biggest surprise. The way they lost isn't particularly a surprise because for so long we've just seen a United side that looks like it doesn't have a heart. It looks like there's no cohesion in it. It looks like they're not quite sure what they're trying to do. I mean, what we saw in this performance is just typical of what we've seen from United over the last 12 months in particular. You know, a team that starting the game is very low in confidence and who shoots themselves in the foot. Goalkeeper throws the first one in. He's at fault for the second one. Ridiculous marking for the third goal when you've got your playmaker picking up the centre forward of the opposition who's 16 foot tall. So many things that are wrong at United that we knew about just keep showing their ugly face every time they step on the field. So again, no surprise they got beat, but to lose 4-0, yeah, that I think is the biggest surprise.
Well, Gary Neville said in commentary, Stevie, it's a real achievement to spend £1 billion and be this bad. How can they be this bad having spent so much money?
Well, you have to look at the recruitment. You know, it's not always about talent. There are plenty of players who have talent, but who can't produce it when it matters most. And Manchester United have a bunch of them. Yes, they have players with talent, but when they're under pressure, when they're asked a question, when they're asked to be consistent, when they're asked all these things, they can't produce. And when you play for Manchester United and you play with the expectations of a Manchester United player, when you have so many players in that one particular spot, as far as the mental side of the game probably is the best way to put it, then you get what we're getting right now. So it's down to recruitment. It's not always just about looking at a talented player. It's the whole package. Are they strong enough physically and mentally? Are they good team guys? Are they good team players? Is it all about them? You know, are they players who play for their teammates? I mean, there are so many things that go into being a top-class footballer. And the one thing that most of these guys are missing at Manchester United is that ability. Yes, talented. The mental side of the game, well, they're just weak.
One of the worst things that a footballer can be accused of is not trying. Are the Manchester United players trying hard enough?
I hate this because I can't honestly tell you that I'm watching Manchester United and thinking that players are not trying. I think it's hard for anybody who's not been involved at that sort of level to understand that when you are struggling with confidence, when your team's struggling, and when your brain's foggy, you know, when you're not thinking straight, because clearly a lot of these players aren't thinking straight, and straight away comes to mind is David De Gea. You know, so when you're not thinking straight, then you make mistakes. You're not decisive. You don't make decisions quickly, and you don't make good decisions. And that's pretty much what you're looking at with Manchester United right now.
How do they turn this around as best they can ahead of facing Liverpool next weekend?
They can't turn it around. The only way Manchester United takes a step forward is by changing the personnel. There's no other way of doing it. You know, I think we shouldn't forget that Listen, since Alex Ferguson left, we're wondering how this thing fell apart. But the truth is, when Alec took over Manchester United, they were a shambles. And it took Alec to completely overhaul the playing staff. You know, by the time from Alex Ferguson taking over to Manchester United winning the Premier League, I think there was one player who was left the year they won it, and that was Brian Robson. Everybody else out the door, and that takes time. Unfortunately, right now, the way the game's looked at today, with the media coverage, with the money that's in it, time is not something anybody gets. And unfortunately, that's what's needed. Ten Hag needs time, and the playing staff has to be overhauled, and probably at least 80% has to be shown the door. There's no other way of changing it, because this group of players clearly don't have the mental strength to change it. I said before, individually they all have talent, but as a unit and mentally, they don't have it in them.
Can Erik Ten Hag improve their mental capacity for focus or whatever? Because we've had Ten Hag, we've had Rangnick, we've had Solskjaer, we've had Moyes, we've had Mourinho. But the players and the problems, that seems to be the common denominator here. How does Erik Ten Hag make sure that these players are better focused mentally on the challenge ahead?
Well, I think we saw today that he can't do it. And I'm going to say that I don't think that's a slight on Ten Hag. I think if you stuck Pep Guardiola in there, he would struggle to do it as well. Man United have bought the wrong players for Manchester United, as far as the mentality is concerned, as far as what's expected at United. They've bought the wrong players, and don't expect players who can't perform at a certain level consistently, both physically and mentally, to all of a sudden, from nowhere, get it. Regardless of who the manager is, Ten Hag isn't going to get a tune out of these guys. And we saw that today. In fact, we saw it last weekend against Brighton, and we shouldn't have been surprised that today, again, the players couldn't deliver.
So what you're saying, this is too big a job to turn around quickly, not just for Erik Ten Hag, but for any manager who may come in and be next at Manchester United.
Absolutely, yeah. Hey, you can't make New York strip out of mincemeat, can you? I don't think you can you?
What next for Ten Hag in training this week? For the players, what do they do?
Not a clue. And I bet he doesn't either.
It's important that despite all the talk about Manchester United, and they'll make the headlines, of course they will. Brentford were outstanding today. This press, the ability, they got the goal, rather fortuitously, but they kept going. They were in the faces of the Manchester United players. What impressed you most about their performance today?
Well, I don't want to take the air out of the balloon a little bit, but any team who are going to be playing against Manchester United and of course Liverpool face them next week, you saw what you've got to do. You get in the face and you put them under pressure. I mean, that's what Brentford did. Brentford didn't play silky soccer. Brentford were just smarter, quicker to the ball, had a bigger desire, was strong mentally, was strong physically, all of those things. You know, this wasn't Barcelona-esque from Brentford. This was a team that knew how to beat Man United. And that is to get in their face, put them under pressure, and ask them questions. Because as I said, we saw against Brighton last week, they couldn't answer any questions. My goodness, when they were asked a question today, they collapsed mentally.
Finally, Stevie, last week, Brighton won at Old Trafford for the first time in the club's history. Today, Erik Ten Hag became the first Manchester United manager since 1921 to lose his first two games in charge. Liverpool next week. Is there any hope whatsoever by changing things around, by changing the personnel, bringing in youngsters or doing anything, that Erik Ten Hag might have a chance of success at Manchester United? Or, as we said when we were doing FC, in the kind of overreaction segment, I asked you, is there a chance Erik Ten Hag won't last the season? You said yes, but only if it's him that walks. Is that possible if this continues?
Well, I would suggest it's going to have to continue for a long period. But if it does continue, that wouldn't be a shock. And I would say that, you know, the upcoming game against Liverpool is all about Liverpool. If Liverpool get back to playing the type of football and performing the way we expect from them, then there can't be anything for United in this game. Just basically on what we've seen from United and what we know Liverpool can produce. So this next game is all about what Liverpool do for me. I don't think United are capable of doing anything or changing much to worry Liverpool. It's down to Liverpool. If they're on it, then there's only one winner.
A night the Brentford fans will never forget. Brentford 4, Manchester United 0.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.